As I sifted through the credit card statement, an activity normally overseen by my husband Henry, I stumbled upon some unexpected charges: $4,200 at a luxury hotel, $1,300 at upscale restaurants, and $600 at a renowned spa. All these expenses were prepaid and coincidentally aligned with the dates Henry was supposed to be at a PTA board retreat for our daughter Janet's middle school. Though I'm not well versed in the nuances of such expenses, I sensed something unusual. Henry, having embraced the role of a stay-at-home dad, has been my rock, allowing me to dedicate myself fully to my nursing career at the university hospital. His support has been unwavering, enabling me to work long, unpredictable hours without the guilt that often accompanies a demanding job. His choice to stay home not only supported me, but also seemed to shield me from the stress of balancing work and family life. However, these charges hinted at plans that might not be entirely for our family. With mixed feelings, I tucked a note into his wallet and made a secretive phone call. Henry was set to leave for his retreat in a week, and I hoped whatever was unfolding would turn into a memorable experience for him. My name is Nancy, and the hectic pace of my job blurs the line between day and night for me. Yet, it's Henry's unconditional support and our daughter Janet's understanding that empowers me to persevere. Despite the struggles, Henry's respect for my dedication has always been clear. He's faced down the curious stares of other parents without ever wavering in his commitment to our family and his involvement in the PTA. His encouragement has been a cornerstone of our life together, pushing me to excel in my career while he manages our home with love and diligence. As the primary earner for my family, I've always been committed to ensuring our financial stability. One afternoon, my routine was disrupted by a call from my credit card company informing me of an overdraft. Just the day before, I had switched the debit account linked to my credit card for my convenience, but unfortunately the funds hadn't been transferred in time. Rushing to review my credit card statement, something I hadn't done in years since I typically left financial management to Henry, I was in for a shock. The balance was alarmingly high. My heart raced as I scrolled through the list of transactions, clueless about when I had made such purchases. The details were bewildering. A slew of transactions at designer boutiques, a famous perfume store, and a luxury watch outlet. I recognized these brands. While I admired them, I hadn't bought anything from them recently. Puzzled, I considered the possibility that Henry, who also had a card on this account, might have been planning a surprise for me, though I hadn't received any gifts. Curiously, all these purchases were made on Wednesdays, a day when I worked night shifts and Henry was typically busy with PTA board meetings. What was happening? I resolved to confront Henry as soon as I got home. Anxiously heading back after a long shift, I was just about to reach our house when I heard someone call my name. It was Catherine, a fellow PTA member, and one of the few mothers I knew from the school. "Hi, Nancy. Long time no see. Are you just getting off work?" she greeted warmly. "Yes, just heading back. Thanks for always being there for Henry," I replied, appreciating her support. "I hope he hasn't been too much trouble." The encounter briefly distracted me from my concerns, but the urgency to unravel the mystery of the credit card statement lingered in my mind. Struggling for words during our unexpected encounter, I quickly shifted the conversation to more familiar topics. Catherine patted me on the shoulder, commenting lightly on my distant demeanor. As she moved, a distinct fragrance wafted through the air, the very scent of the exclusive Marie perfume listed in the recent credit card transactions. It was the same perfume I had longed to own, having tested it repeatedly at the store but never actually purchasing it. "Smells nice, that's the one I've wanted too. Did you buy it?" I blurted out, instantly regretting my intrusive question. My curiosity seemed to stem from jealousy, and I felt foolish for letting it show. Yet my mind couldn't help but reel as I remembered that all those mysterious credit card purchases were made on Wednesdays, the same days as the PTA meetings. It was too much of a coincidence. My suspicion inadvertently grew stronger when Catherine mentioned cheerfully,
Actually, I got it as a gift. It was our anniversary the other day." Her laughter seemed carefree and genuine.
"Oh, that's so nice. You guys are so in love," I responded, forcing a smile while trying to quell the nagging doubts in my mind. Our conversation drifted to other casual subjects, and we eventually parted ways. Despite her seemingly innocent demeanor, I couldn't shake the suspicion that there was more to the story. As I walked away, her words echoed in my mind. She had mentioned our anniversary, yet she hadn't specified it was with her husband. Abruptly, I stopped, my thoughts racing. I turned back, hoping perhaps to clarify this slip, but Catherine was already gone. The impulse to follow and confront her surged through me, fueled by a growing suspicion of an affair between her and Henry. That suspicion, once a mere seed of doubt, had grown into an overwhelming certainty that I could no longer ignore. As the next Wednesday approached and my family saw me off to work as usual, I knew I had to face whatever truths lay hidden, ready to unravel the mysteries clouding my heart. I arranged to leave work early without telling Henry. Revealing my plans would defeat the purpose, so I waited near our home in secrecy. As expected, my mother-in-law arrived, and shortly afterward, Henry headed out for what appeared to be his usual PTA board meeting. I discreetly followed him to the school where the meeting took place in a classroom. About 30 minutes later, the members dispersed. Most hurried home, but Henry lingered behind. Finally, he exited the building. They locked eyes and intertwined their fingers, their connection unmistakable as they walked toward a hotel. Unbeknownst to them, I was just a few meters away, a mix of anger and sorrow distorting my face. I had trusted him, loved him. Did he encourage my long work hours just to have his own time? As I stood there feeling utterly betrayed, my phone pinged with a notification, another charge on our credit card for the hotel they had just entered. Later, they emerged looking content and carefree. I managed to take a few photos as evidence of their affair, my heart hardening with each snapshot. The tears had dried up. No trace of affection remained. From that day, I avoided Henry as much as I could, using my job as an excuse. Part of me wanted to initiate a divorce immediately, but that meant pulling Janet away from her father, a decision I wasn't ready to make without careful thought. One night, lost in my troubled thoughts and crying quietly in the living room, I was jolted back to reality by Janet's voice. "Mom?" It seemed she had either stayed up late or woken up due to the disturbance. She approached and hugged me gently, a simple act that felt like a lifeline amidst the turmoil. Janet's words hit me hard, releasing a flood of emotions I had been holding back. "I don't want you to be sad, Mom. Your enemies are my enemies, and I won't forgive anyone who makes you sad, not even Dad." Her declaration brought tears to my eyes, tears of gratitude for her support, and tears of regret for the upheaval I knew a divorce would cause. "If we go through with this, things will change drastically," I explained. "We might have to move, and you won't see your dad every day. You might even have to change schools and leave your friends behind." She cut through my torrent of worries with a calm determination. "I still want to be with you, Mom. I want to be a nurse like you. I'll be okay. So please do what you think is best," she said, gripping my hands firmly. Her encouragement bolstered my resolve. Emboldened by her support, I began to keep a closer eye on our finances, a habit that soon uncovered more discrepancies. I discovered plans for a supposed week-long PTA board retreat, a concept that seemed absurd for parents who should be close to their children. Such a lengthy absence didn't align with Henry's usual commitments, and the extravagant details listed on the credit card didn't help his case. The destination and choice of the hotel were luxuries far beyond the norm for a school-related event. Henry had underestimated my attentiveness. His efforts to camouflage his tracks were crumbling. Armed with a detailed list of credit card transactions, reservations at a chic restaurant, hotel booking confirmations, and even a request for a surprise cake, I had gathered enough evidence.
The reality of his deception was clear, and with Janet's unwavering support, I was ready to confront the situation and protect our future. I had always been thankful to Henry for giving up his job to become a stay-at-home dad, believing it was my responsibility to work hard and provide for our family. However, discovering his betrayal was a harsh blow. It wasn't just personal, he was jeopardizing our family's integrity. On my next day off, I started to put my plan into motion, a subtle form of revenge for his deceit.
First, I contacted every hotel and restaurant he had booked. Since the reservations were in his name and I knew all the details, claiming to be his wife raised no suspicions. Later that evening, I executed the next part of my plan. Henry had transitioned from using cash to relying on a shared credit card after we got married. I found his wallet in the living room and swapped his current card with an expired one. It was identical in appearance but had been void for 7 months. I had procrastinated throwing it away, but now that laziness served a purpose. If he tried using this expired card, he'd realize the mistake only when it was declined, hopefully when he was too far from home to correct it easily. The next morning, as Henry cheerily announced he was leaving to attend meetings to improve the school, he told Janet to take good care of me. We both smiled and saw him off, hiding our true feelings under a veneer of normalcy. As soon as he was out of sight, our smiles faded and we sprang into action, packing our belongings hurriedly. The movers arrived promptly and their efficiency was a blessing. We managed to relocate to our new home swiftly. As they asked where to place the last of the boxes, I responded nonchalantly, "Oh, don't worry about those, just leave them there." They shrugged and continued, leaving the boxes piled in one corner of the room. Throughout this whirlwind of activity, a strange peace settled over me, tinged with the bittersweet realization that this might be the last time things felt normal with Henry. But as Janet and I unpacked in our new space, I felt a resolve strengthening within us, ready to start anew. After handing over the last of the boxes to the moving crew, who seemed to arrive just in time, we ensured that all of Henry's belongings were packed. The house was left stark and empty, devoid of his presence. In the living room, where we had shared countless memories, I laid out a poignant display. Recent credit card statements, photos of Henry and Catherine that I had secretly taken, and my wedding ring which had lost all its significance, accompanied by the stark finality of divorce papers. My phone was abuzz with missed calls, all from Henry, who must have sensed that something was amiss during his trip. Ignoring his attempts to reach me, I sent a text explaining that I was tied up with several emergency operations and couldn't respond. I then silenced my phone, placing it at the bottom of my bag, distancing myself from the chaos of his frantic calls. Janet and I couldn't help but share a rueful laugh over the situation. It felt surreal, almost like a scene from a drama unfolding in real life. "Oh, right, I should probably make one last call," I mused, realizing there was one more thing to handle. We made that call a little later, securing the last piece of our exit strategy. A week later, Henry returned from his so-called business trip. Cheerful and unsuspecting, he walked into what he expected to be a lively home but was met with emptiness and silence. The reality of the situation hit him hard as he discovered the documents and items I had left behind. He tried calling me repeatedly, but to no avail. I had already blocked his number. Then an unknown number appeared on his phone. Hopeful, he answered immediately, only to be greeted by a demand for payment. The caller was a hotel manager, explaining that all the bookings Henry thought were prepaid needed to be settled in cash because the credit card had expired. Humiliated and desperate, Henry had to scramble to borrow money to cover the costs. "So did you manage to borrow $5,000 from each of them? That's a lot of money. Did you go overseas? Must have been quite the trip. I hope Catherine didn't give you too much trouble," I said, my voice calm but dripping with irony. Caught off guard, Henry's response was a mix of confusion and frustration, his voice dropping to a strained whisper. The reality of his situation was crashing down around him,
and the foundations of his deception were crumbling, leaving him exposed and vulnerable in the silence of the empty house. Henry turned pale and started trembling so severely that he could barely speak. Is this Catherine?" he managed to stutter, mistaking the caller for someone else. "I'm honored you remember me. Yes, this is her husband. I know everything about you two. I'll be demanding alimony and I won't let you get away with this," the voice on the other end declared firmly, leaving no room for discussion. He ended the call abruptly, not waiting to hear Henry's response. Frantic, Henry tried to reach Catherine, but her phone was dead.
It had been disconnected, a sign that her husband had been aware of the affair and had already taken steps. Her husband, cold and calculating, had called me earlier that day to inform me about their affair. Though he was taken aback to learn the identity of his wife's partner, he wasn't entirely surprised by her infidelity. He expressed deep remorse and even offered his cooperation in any plans I had for exposing them. Armed with the address of Catherine's parents from her husband, I sent all of Henry's belongings, along with copies of the divorce papers and photos of the affair, to their home. Her parents, prominent and successful business owners, were furious. The scandal quickly became the talk of the neighborhood, leading to Catherine's divorce and the loss of custody of her children due to the adultery. Her family, once a pillar of support, turned their backs on her, driven by the disgrace she brought upon their reputation. They refused to even let her inside their home when she arrived in tears. Left with no one to turn to, Catherine was forced to move into a modest apartment, taking up a job known for its grueling hours and low pay to cover her alimony expenses. Meanwhile, Janet and I moved in temporarily with my parents until the divorce was finalized. Henry, now isolated and grappling with the consequences of his actions, returned to his roots in search of solace. Despite everything that has happened, I still keep in touch with Henry's family, mainly because they remain deeply invested in Janet's well-being. Henry's father shared that he now dedicates every moment to working on the farm, driven by the need to keep up with the alimony and child support payments. His voice carried a tone of disappointment when discussing Henry's circumstances. My lawyer successfully negotiated a substantial sum for both alimony and child support, ensuring that Henry's financial responsibilities were quite significant. This will compel him to work extensively, making it tough for him to save anything for himself for the foreseeable future. His father described it almost as a living hell. After the divorce was finalized, Janet and I moved into a new house, and she started at a new school. Her teachers and classmates have been incredibly welcoming, and she's thriving in her new environment, which brings me a great deal of comfort. With Henry no longer in our day-to-day lives, I've taken on the household duties, striving to find a balance between work and home responsibilities, a task more challenging than I anticipated. However, I vastly prefer this life, despite the increased workload. It feels liberating to no longer deal with the turmoil and deceit that came with my previous marriage. I'm now more committed to living a happier and more productive life, embracing the freedom from past negativity. It's a refreshing change, and every day I'm reminded that moving forward was the right choice for both Janet and me.